What's up, everybody? We are back post Kentucky Derby for doubling down, and we're heading to Belmont Park. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Trust the Profits YouTube page. My name is Colin Sheehan, joined by my good friend and original co-host of this show, Vinny Blonde. Vinny, what's happening? How are your post Kentucky Derby hangover going?
It's going pretty good. I played a little Belmont today, went okay. So not as hungover as I was.
It's nice that we are back to looking at Belmont because we know I booked my trip up to Saratoga, up to Whitney weekend, so we already started chatting about that, and it's right around the corner, which is exciting to me. It's amazing how long we look into the Kentucky Derby and then it's over. Like, obviously the fastest 2 minutes in sports, but it already feels like a lifetime ago, and it happens so quick that you're kind of like, oh, now what?
Right. Right. And it's like, like you might not win, but like I feel like it's one of the best race. It's definitely the most fun like handicapping race, I feel like. Because you have around at least around 20 horses to start. We ended up with 18 in the starting gate. Like you don't get that in major races in the US. Luck like sometimes you get 9 or 10, sometimes 12, but most part like that's the biggest race. That's the most horses like 90% of people here are going to handicap all year. And it just makes it fun. And you hear everybody's opinions and then you get bragging rights for a whole year.
That's right. That's right. And it's fun too because you're following those horses. You know what the trail is. You know the races that are leading into the next. You know the circuits. You have that down, so you really are familiar with those horses, starting really in Saratoga, right? And maybe even before that. So there's a lot more familiarity when you finally get to the Derby and the Preakness, of course. But they start to mix up now, and they kind of start to go their separate ways. And you kind of start to lose track of who's going where and what's happening. So that's one reason I love it so much, because it's the race that's most easiest to follow. However, for me, Vinny, I got some bad news that I'm finally joining you in the red. Uh,
Oh
my
no.
my $20 Oaks Derby double. I had Pretty Mischievous, but I unfortunately did the stupid mistake of leaving Mage off, so I am now falling into the red with you. It took me 33 episodes, but it only takes one to get you back in the green. So that's what we're going to go for. And we're going to turn our attention to, as I mentioned in the open, Belmont Park, where we have a nice little sequence here. We have the Man of War Stakes and the Peter Pan, which is, again, dipping into those 3-year-olds in the second leg of this race. But in the first leg, we have some horses, many of these horses, a field of 8, where 5 of them are coming back from the Elkhorn that was run at Keeneland on a good turf at 1.5 miles. That was a grade 2 won by Verstappen. You kind of have to use that as a key race, but you also have to key race to handicap this race. I mean, but you also have to take into consideration that a lot of horses going into that race, they were coming in off of a layoff. So you now have them coming back for their second time, and you have to kind of decide how you're going to move those. And at the same time, you have a Charlie Appleby horse coming in named Warren Point, your number 2. And to me, that's where I'll start, because whenever I see Charlie Appleby long on the turf, it's like an immediate kind of attention grabber for me. He shipped this horse in. He's hitting at 55% with shippers to the U.S. You get Totori aboard. 9-5 favorite. I think that's probably the right place. This horse has won 5 times out of 8 lifetime races. I am not going to let Warren Point beat me. How about you?
Yeah, I'm not either. The way I kind of looked at this race was I feel like there's really like two ways you could look at this. You could either go like, okay, you're not gonna let Appleby beat you, or you'd be like, I'm not gonna let Maker beat me. I don't think you can make it, especially a double ticket. I don't think there's room for all three of them on a double ticket and still have value. I went the Appleby route. I trust Apple. I trust Appleby, even though like, I mean I don't think it would be shock anybody here if Maker won, but Appleby shipping in a horse, especially a horse like Warren Point, who just came in second in a grade 1 back in February. Like we've seen it time and time again. He ships these horses over, and they're just they're leaps and bounds better than anything we have here. So I think 9 to 5 would be a generous price on Warren Point.
Yeah, you decided to use others on this leg, though. Where else did you go?
Yeah, the other horse I decided to use here is Soldier Rising. The morning line. I think he's going to drift off this 5-to-1 morning line.
with
At
a
least I'm
sigh,
hoping.
you said that.
Yeah, it's one of those like okay, like I feel like this horse has always shown potential and he's never put it together. Like he's won a couple of the allowance optional claiming races, but he's run big in some stakes races and just hasn't gotten there. Even last year in the Sword Dancer, he ran a monster race in that Sword Dancer. He finished third, not by much, but he's one that I want to be on the right side of him when he finally wins. And I think he's going to be a good price here. I think he's going to end up drifting up a little bit. I think Red Knight's going to take more money. I would be shocked if value engineering goes off in double digits. So I think Soldier Rising is going to take is going to drift up a little bit, or at least stay at that 5-1 price that makes him worth throwing on the double here. Um, if he doesn't win, he doesn't win. I just don't want to be on the wrong side of him because I do think he's super talented.
Yeah, and last doubling down I did was actually included that Elkhorn. And I remember specifically saying I didn't want to play these 9-year-olds coming off the layoff, and I'm going to just continue to fade them. It might burn me. I love Channel Maker as a horse. I also like Red Knight. Red Knight almost got there to beat Verstappen, and I feel Verstappen was the one I was trickiest at deciding if I'm going to go back to the well after it just won at 16-1. Right? It's like don't if you miss the wedding, don't go to the funeral, and I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of maybe doing that. However, I know going into the Elkhorn, I was curious of Verstappen's 3 previous races coming on the synthetic. And to me, like, wow, this horse has really turned the table, but it was because it was on the synthetic. So I faded Verstappen in the Elkhorn. Obviously, it wasn't an anomaly because now you're looking at a 4-year-old who came back and ran 100 Brisnet speed figure at that race on the turf in Keeneland, and now has reeled off 3 wins out of the 4 last races. So it's 6-1. I'm actually interested in playing Verstappen for Brendan Walsh, who has been doing really well. But what I also like about this horse is that the second call, this horse is always within striking distance. The last like 7 or 8 races, pretty much always within 2 to 3 lengths. And when you're coming, on these longer races, I want a horse that I know at least is going to be there at the end. If it doesn't have enough because of maybe of the Elkhorn, I'll take my shot with that. But at least I know he's going to be forwardly placed and hopefully at least have a shot. The other horse that I was interested in was the 5, House Street. I just see that continuing. Speed figures increase 81, 87, then put back-to-back 95s. The last race was off the layoff, so you're getting second off the layoff, and you're also getting Abreu taking off the blinkers, at which he hits at almost 29% on. So I'm intrigued that hopefully maybe that means the horse will be a little bit more forwardly placed, and maybe if it takes another step forward, is certainly going to be there at 8-1. So I am going to go with Warren Point and Verstappen and House Street. Did Verstappen or House Street cross your mind at all?
House Street did, for the reasons you said. I think House Street's very interesting here. Um, I just it's a I don't know if Abreu really gets the caliber of horses to win these type of races.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it came down to me. I think he's a fun horse. Uh, he's definitely run well. Uh, I'm just gonna need him. I need this. He's one of those horses that at 8-1, if he drifts up a little bit to that 12-1 range, maybe. But I really need to see him run well against like graded stake company before I start using him in these big spots. The Elkhorn was his first and only stake start. He finished sixth. That race wasn't awful, but he wasn't going against like a Warren Point or like a seasoned horse like Red Knight. Even value engineering is kind of proven in stakes company. So he's just one I want to see a little bit more from before I jump in, because he is one that's probably going to be around for another few years. So it could start now. It could start in a year or two, but this wasn't the right spot for me to use him, I felt.
I'm hoping that the presence of strong tide will bring a little bit more speed up front, which will hopefully set up nicely for House Street as well. Because I looked back at that Elkhorn and there wasn't really a whole lot of pace in it. So when you add in strong tide here, maybe they get a little quicker up front. And House Street, who tends to come from off the pace for sure in at least his first 3 races, didn't really have much left in his last. maybe the presence of strong tide will set up better for House Street.
Yeah, also, it depends on what channel maker does too, you know? Sometimes he goes to the lead, sometimes he breaks well, he's on the pace. Sometimes he doesn't feel like breaking, he just loiters in the middle of the pack. So it's
Yeah,
like a channel maker can kind of make or break this race for the horses coming from the back too, depending on what channel maker shows up.
it's like all of us. Some days you feel like going to work, and some days you just
Yeah,
show up
yeah,
and
and he's a
you know,
he's a
hard worker.
9-year-old gelding. Like he kind of can do what he wants. Like I don't blame them for keep throwing him in these big spots. He's proven that he can still, his last couple definitely have not been phenomenal. It's been a bit. So his last race at Belmont Park was a win, and that was actually the last time he finished in the top three. So maybe it's Belmont Park. We'll get him back on track, but it's a 9-year-old gelding that's he's earned well over $1 million in his career. Just let him keep. I don't blame them at all for they keep putting him in spots like this.
Yeah, he's a good horse, one that I've always enjoyed watching. So, race 6, the second leg of our daily double, is the Peter Pan Stakes. As I mentioned, or as we talked about, we're back to having some of these 3-year-olds that we have followed along. Of course, Slip Mahoney's a name you might recognize, Classic Catch, Henry Q. And of course, the interesting one here is number 9, Bishop's Bay, the Brad Cox horse being ridden by Florent Giroux. This is one that has garnered a lot of attention, along with First Mission, who First Mission's obviously pointed towards the Preakness. What do you think about Bishop's Bay? Did you include him on your ticket?
I did, and I know if this comes out Warren Point Bishop Bay, I'm probably it's not going to pay much, but I really like Bishop Bay. He actually beat First Mission to break his maiden. He came back and ran solid in that allowance effort. I think he's a very good horse. I think he's definitely a contender to be one of those late blooming 3-year-olds. Depending on what happens with the horses coming out of the Triple Crown Trail, I would not be shocked if First Mission doesn't, even if he wins the Preakness, doesn't run in the Belmont and Bishop's Bay ends up being one of Brad Cox's Belmont horses. He's definitely bred for it. Peter Pan's, a prep for it. I really like this horse.
Yeah, and what if it is a prep for that though?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a prep for that, I think we're still going to see him win here.
Yeah.
I don't think he goes without winning. He's been working out. He's been working out great. His last few workouts, all 5 furlong workouts. 1 minute in the last couple, which anything a minute or under, in my opinion, isn't a bad work, especially when you watch him. I think he's the goods. Besides him, I'm not. I know he's got another one in here that you're kind of high on. I'm not. Um, but I think a lot of these for some of these other trainers are horses that might just not be as good that they're trying to get back in the stakes company, like Henry Q, who was disappointing in the Sunland Derby uh, last time out. Classic Catch. How many times do we have to see Classic Catch run before we kind of give up on him as a legit stakes horse?
Especially at
Game
9 to 2 as well. That was
right,
the turn off for me there.
right. Game changer is just one that kind of doesn't seem like he's ever gotten over the hump. So I kind of feel like we got a full field of 9, and like yes, maybe some of these others can improve, but I think Bishop's Bay has a chance to be the real deal. I think.
Yeah, he's kind of the up and comer where you've gotten a good sense of the rest of the horses in the field. But as you said, if it comes Warren Point Bishop's Bay, obviously that's not going to pay much. I took that little angle when I came in here. Okay, how can I beat the favorite here if I'm more higher on Warren Point in the last? If at least if you're looking at Brisnet speed figures, um, Bishop's Bay number did drop. I know he clipped heels pretty badly actually in his last race at the fairgrounds. Ended up winning that by a neck. He's only raced 2 times. He's coming from off the layoff. The last 3 works were good. A couple before that were slow, but that was probably just getting him back into form, right?
Hmm.
But I decided to take a shot against him, and it's one of those races that I say on this show. It may cost me, but I don't want to be can't be afraid to lose, as they say. I am interested in Slip Mahoney, and that's the other Cox that you had referenced. This is a horse that I've kind of always just had a little bit of a soft spot for as you're watching these horses on the trail. This one just lost to Tappet Trice by a neck before breaking the maiden at Aqueduct. Then was off slow in the Gotham. That was the crazy race where the horse, I can't remember the horse's name, but went riderless around the track and stayed on the inside and caused a little bit of chaos. This horse, Slip Mahoney, ended up 9 wide in that race, was practically grabbing some peanuts at the stand on the way by. And then the last race was really bumped hard. If you watch on the Wood Memorial, going into that first turn, really caught up into some traffic. I don't know that it's an excuse why he didn't win the race. He wasn't probably going to win that Lord Miles Hit Show showdown, but was definitely bothered enough to make an excuse for what happened there. I think if you go back to that maiden victory, he's sired by Arrogate and AP Indy on the dam side. Obviously gives the distance. I'm hoping is not a problem. So I'm hoping that you kind of maybe can toss those last two, which is probably dangerous because those are where you're kind of comparing the grade 2s and the grade 3s. But I'm going to take a shot and use Slip Mahoney. And I'm also going to go to his inside for the other Arrogate with Archangelo. This horse has raced 3 times in maiden special weights, breaking the maiden last time out at Gulfstream Park with Javier Castellano aboard. Javier Castellano comes back for this race. 2 back, he actually lost to King's Barn, who was obviously some pace pressure up front for the Kentucky Derby. Archangelo on that day, when the pace was extremely fast, was flattened late. And I kind of start to play this game of, well, if I'm going to take a swing, you start dropping some other ones in. So the only other one I'm going to include on my ticket is number 4, Summer Cause. This horse is trained by Christophe Clement. The last race out actually lost to a horse by the name of Perform. And we talked about Perform because that horse, they just paid $150,000 to put into the Preakness. You had some thoughts on Perform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what type of like how good Perform really is, because I feel like if Shug, I believe he is trained by Shug,
Yeah.
and if I'm not mistaken, Shug's one of those trainers that, like, if he's got a good horse, like, they're nominated before this point. So I'm kind of curious if this was an ownership decision to run him in the Preakness, or if Shug is really like, all right, let's go. Yeah, he turned it around and like he's ready to go. Part of at the price, he might be worth it. I don't know though. I'm kind of gonna reserve judgment on that, but maybe he's 30. He's probably gonna be like 20, 30 to 1 in the Preakness, I would imagine. So you'll get a price on him if you believe.
Yeah, so Summer Cause came out of that race, last race, finishing a length and a quarter behind Perform. I liked the price, obviously, and I also liked the last workout was at Belmont. You mentioned going 5 furlongs under a minute is good. That's what this horse did, going 1 minute flat. It was actually 1 out of 15 workouts on May 5th. So those are the 3 that I'm going to take a shot with to go against Bishop's Bay. Not too crazy of a ticket, but I think if you can get past Fort Warren in the first leg and then maybe get past Bishop's Bay in the second leg, obviously a tall task. Hopefully I can get myself back into that green number.
Yeah, and the other horse I'm using is Go Soldier Go, now with Todd Pletcher. Last ran in the UAE Derby, which I don't think the UAE Derby form is that bad this year. I know Derma Sorgate ran a disappointing 6th in the Derby, but considering the trip he got and like how his whole race was done by the break. Yeah. And the fact that he kicked a lot of horses home and still ended up finishing 6th, he's a good horse. I don't know if they'll bring him back this year. I know they're pointing him to the Japan Derby. I believe that is in a week or 2. I think it is. I'd have to look again. But he's going to be tough to beat in that race in the Japan Derby. I mean, he ran a monster race considering what happened to him. And I know Mage had a bad start too, and he made up all the ground and ended up winning. But for a race that I know a lot of people kind of just draw a line through, I think that UAE Derby was a little bit better. I doubt we get 8-1 on Go Soldier Go. I also don't know if this horse really wants to go a mile and an eighth. He's sired by Tapiture, who is definitely much better much better going shorter, in my opinion. So, I mean, the mile and an eighth at Belmont, maybe he could get, but I think maybe he's going to want to be shortened up. But if he is around that 8-1 price, I think he's worth using. And if I get lucky and if I get the Soldier double here, I think it will pay nice. It would
Nice.
put me in the green. I think it will put me in the green if the Soldier double hits.
I like that. But I also was a huge Dermasoto Gake fan, but let's face it, this horse finished 15 lengths behind him in the UAE Derby. So even if the UAE Derby was keyed, this horse, didn't have much to say, but did run well before that. Of course, if you worry about that maiden trip over to the US,
Yeah.
with some horses, you got something there. This horse is actually trained by Todd Pletcher.
Yeah, he's been training. He's with Pletcher now. I don't. If I'd have to. I'm 99.9% sure he was not with Todd Pletcher at the time, and they gave him the Todd, and Todd shipped him over here. So he has been here training for Todd. So it's not like he's been training for somebody else and now he's just thrown with Todd. So that his first start. I believe it is for his first start with Todd, but he will. We'll see what he's got. I think obviously I think Pletcher has some other very good horses that are going to point for the Belmont, but you never know. This is one that we might see in the Jim Dandy, or maybe see like in the I forget the I think it's the Pegasus is the Haskell prep. If he runs good here, that's a spot where I could see this horse end up running. So that's why I landed on him.
So Vinny goes 2-6 with the 6-9. This is for Belmont race 5 and 6, the daily double on May 13th, 2023. I decided to go 2-4-5 with the 1-2-4. That'll cost you $9. Hopefully one of us can get through here. We haven't had much luck of winners. I've been on the 1 out of 2 bug, and the guest. I don't think a guest has won on my show this in the calendar year of 2023.
Well, hopefully I can break that trend.
I would like that. Thanks so much for joining me again. Please like and subscribe. Check out all the content we have. We will have you fully covered and cranked up for Preakness next week. Until next time, have a great day, everybody.